The meeting room fell silent as High Counselor Vextora entered. Her blue skin seemed paler than usual, and her 4 eyes blinked rapidly, a sign of extreme stress among her kind. The representatives of 17 advanced alien species watched her closely. These were the leaders of the Galactic Concord, an alliance that had ruled the stars peacefully for over 2,000 years. Until now. The Void Scourge has broken through our defenses in the Orion sector, Vextora said. Her voice was calm, but everyone could sense her fear. That is the 8th defensive line to fall this cycle. Murmurs filled the room. The Void Scourge had appeared 3 years ago from the edges of the galaxy. It consumed everything in its path. Planets, stars, even the space between them. Nothing the Concord tried had stopped it. Our predictive models show total defeat within 2 cycles, continued Vextora, unless we try the final option. Ambassador Zinlak, a tall, insect-like being, clicked his mandibles in disagreement. Surely there must be another solution. The humans are too unpredictable, too violent. The humans? Gasped Ambassador Irel of the Lumi people. Her light-based body flickered with shock. We agreed centuries ago they were too dangerous to contact. Vexatora raised her 6-fingered hand. For silence. We have tried everything else. Our weapons are superior to theirs in every way, yet we keep losing ground. The humans understand something we do not. They understand war. Far away from this meeting, on the small blue planet called Earth, Admiral Philip Carter was fishing at his cabin in Montana. At 62 years old, with gray hair and deep wrinkles around his eyes, he had earned his peaceful retirement. 40 years in the Navy, including 15 as a SEAL and 10 commanding fleets, had left him with plenty of scars but even more stories. The fish weren't biting today, but Carter didn't mind. He enjoyed the quiet, the gentle sound of water lapping against his small boat, the occasional call of birds overhead. So different from the noise of battle. When his phone rang, he almost didn't answer it. Only 4 people had this number, and none of them would call unless it was important. Carter, he answered. Admiral, it's General Ellis. I need you in Washington today. Carter frowned. I'm retired, Frank. Not anymore. President's orders. There's a car already on its way to you. 6 hours later, Carter sat in a secure room, beneath the Pentagon, listening with growing disbelief as General Ellis explained the situation. They call themselves the Galactic Concord, said Ellis, sliding a tablet across the table with images of beings that couldn't possibly be real. They made contact 3 days ago. Asked for you by name. Carter looked at the strange creatures on the screen. How did they even know I exist? They've been watching us for centuries, apparently. They know everything about our military history, our tactics, our leaders, and they're desperate. A door opened and a Secret Service agent stepped in. Sir, they're ready. The room they entered was larger, with a circular table in the center. One side was occupied by humans, the president, joint chiefs, key advisors. The other side held beings from nightmare or fantasy. A blue-skinned woman, with 4 eyes, an upright insect the size of a horse, a floating cloud of light with eyes, and 3 others just as strange. Carter had seen many things in his life, but this left him speechless. The blue woman stood. Admiral Carter, I am High Counselor Vextora of the Galactic Concord. Thank you for coming. Her English was perfect, with only a slight musical quality to it. Carter nodded cautiously. I'll be direct, she continued. Our civilization faces extinction. We need your help. Over the next hour, they explained about the Void Scourge, showing holographic images of entire star systems being consumed by what looked like living darkness. The Concord had weapons that could destroy planets, ships that could fold space, medical technology that could extend life for centuries. Yet they were losing. Why me? Carter finally asked. Why humans at all? The insect-like being, introduced as Ambassador Zinlak, answered, Your species possesses something we lack. You understand warfare as art and science. You grasp concepts like sacrifice, asymmetric tactics, and psychological warfare in ways our logical minds never evolved to comprehend. You want us to fight, Your war? Carter asked. We want you to teach us how to fight, corrected Vexutora. In exchange, we offer knowledge and protection. The Void Scourge will reach your world eventually, if not stopped. The president leaned forward. How long do we have? At current rates of expansion, perhaps 20 of your years. After the meeting, Carter stood by a window, looking out at the Washington Monument glowing in the distance. General Ellis joined him. They're giving us 3 days to decide, Ellis said. Carter shook his head. If what they showed us is true, there's no decision to make. We help them or we all die. You don't sound convinced. They're not telling us everything, Carter said. This Void Scourge has been expanding for 3 years, but they only contact us now. And they specifically asked for me, a retired admiral. Something doesn't add up. Ellis sighed. Well, if we're doing this, the president wants you to lead our team. Pick whoever you need. Carter thought for a moment. I want Grace Winters. Ellis raised an eyebrow. The AI programmer? The one who got blacklisted for hacking the Pentagon? That's the one. Also Steve Harrison. The weapons designer who got fired for breaking every safety protocol in the book? And Dr. Laura Mendez. Ellis seemed relieved. The anthropologist? At least she's not a criminal or a madman. No, just the woman who wrote that controversial paper, arguing that warfare is the natural state of all intelligent species. Carter turned from the window. If we're going to help aliens fight a war, I want people who think differently. Because something tells me we're not getting the whole truth here. 2 days later, Carter's unusual team gathered at Andrews Air Force Base. Grace Winters was 35, with short black hair and quick eyes that seemed to analyze everything. Steve Harrison was older, around 50, with wild gray hair and hands that couldn't stay still. Laura Mendez was calm and observant, her dark eyes missing nothing. None of them had hesitated when Carter called. None of them fully believed what they'd been told. As they waited for the alien shuttle that would take them to the conquered flagship in orbit, Harrison nudged Carter. So, they picked us because we're good at war, he said quietly. What does that say about their opinion of humanity? Carter watched as a light appeared in the sky, growing larger. It says they're desperate, and desperate allies are dangerous. The alien shuttle landed silently, a sleek silver craft unlike anything on Earth. As the ramp extended downward, Carter felt a strange mix of wonder and dread. Whatever happens next, he told his team, remember we represent Earth now, but we work for humanity, not them. The ramp touched the ground. Ambassador Zinlak appeared in the doorway, mandibles clicking in what might have been nervousness. Admiral Carter, the alien said, are you ready to join the stars? Carter straightened his shoulders and stepped forward. Humanity's first steps into a larger galaxy would be taken not in peace but in preparation for war. It wasn't how anyone had imagined it would be. But then, war rarely was. The alien ship hummed softly as it moved through space faster than Carter thought possible. He stood with his team at a viewing window watching Earth shrink to a tiny blue dot and then disappear entirely. None of them spoke. What could you say when leaving your home planet for the first time? We will reach Concord Prime in 3 of your days, Ambassador Zinlak said, approaching them. His insect-like body moved with surprising grace. I have arranged quarters for each of you. You may wish to rest. I'd rather see your command center, Carter replied. If we're going to help you fight this war, we need to understand how you operate. Zinlak's mandibles clicked rapidly, which Carter was beginning to recognize as a sign of uncertainty. Of course, this way. The Concord Command Center was a marvel of alien technology. Holographic displays showed star systems, fleet movements, and data streams that Carter couldn't begin to understand. About 20 aliens of different species worked at various stations. All moved with precise, carefully planned motions. Laura Mendez leaned close to Carter. Notice how organized they are? No wasted movement, no casual conversation, no improvisation. Carter nodded. It was like watching a perfectly choreographed dance. Efficient, but rigid. Grace Winters was already examining one of the displays, her eyes darting across the alien symbols. Their data processing is incredible, but their security protocols are interesting. Don't hack our allies on the first day, Carter warned quietly. Steve Harrison had wandered to another section where weapons systems were displayed. He whistled softly. They weren't lying about their tech. These energy yields are off the charts. Why are they losing with firepower like this? High Counselor Vexatora entered the command center, her blue skin shimmering under the lights. Because firepower alone does not win wars, Mr. Harrison. That is why you are here. She gestured to a large circular table in the center of the room. Please join me. I will show you what we face. The table projected a three-dimensional image of the galaxy. Certain areas glowed red, showing the spread of the void scourge. It began here, Vexatora said, pointing to the outer rim. 3 years ago. At first we thought it was a natural phenomenon, perhaps a chain of supernovas or spatial anomalies. By the time we realized it was a sentient force, it had consumed 4 star systems. Carter studied the pattern of red areas. It's not expanding randomly, it's following specific paths. Vexatora nodded. Yes. It seems drawn to certain types of stars and energy signatures. We've tried to use this knowledge to predict its movements and set up defensive lines. But it keeps breaking through, Laura said. Yes, each time it seems to learn from our tactics. We set up barriers, it finds ways around them. We attack directly, it absorbs or redirects the energy. Steve leaned forward. Have you tried talking to it? The aliens in the command center fell silent. Vexatora's 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Mr. Harrison, she said slowly, the void scourge consumes everything. It is not something you can negotiate with. How do you know? Have you tried? Zinlak clicked his mandibles angrily. For 300 cycles, we have sent messages in every language and format known to the conquered. There has never been a response. Carter made a mental note of this new information. 300 cycles meant the conquered had been dealing with the scourge far longer than the 3 years they'd initially claimed. Show us your most recent battle, he said. Vexatora adjusted the display to show a star system where a large Concord fleet faced a dark, swirling mass that seemed to bend light around it. This was the Krell system 20 days ago, she explained. We positioned 97 capital ships and over 400 support vessels to protect the inhabited planets. The team watched as the battle unfolded. The conquered ships fired brilliant beams of energy at the dark mass. Where the beams hit, the darkness seemed to retreat momentarily, only to surge back stronger. Slowly, inevitably, it engulfed ship after ship. Your weapons hurt it, Grace observed, but only temporarily. Yes, said Vexatora. We can damage, small portions, but it regenerates quickly. And what happened to the ships it swallowed? Carter asked. Vexatora's voice grew quiet. We do not know. They do not reappear. Their signals simply cease. The simulation ended with the void scourge consuming not just the fleet, but the inhabited planets as well. 4 billion lives lost, Zinlak said, in a single day. Carter and his team spent the next 2 days studying everything the Concord would share about the void scourge and their attempts to fight it. They gathered in their private quarters to share findings. Laura went first. Their military structures are completely different from ours. They operate on pure logic and consensus. No real chain of command. No bold initiatives, no sacrificing the few to save the many. Their weapons are incredible, Steve added, but they're designed for precision and containment, not maximum damage. They're trying to surgically remove the scourge without harming anything else. And their battle algorithms are too predictable, said Grace. They run simulations and follow the optimal solution exactly, but the scourge seems to anticipate this now. Carter paced the room. They think like immortals because they nearly are. Most of these species live for centuries. They've had peace for thousands of years. They don't understand fighting for survival. There's something else, Grace said, lowering her voice. I found references to a final solution in their secure databases. The others looked at her sharply. What kind of final solution? Carter asked. I couldn't access the details, but it's something drastic, something they're preparing for if all else fails. Carter stopped pacing. We need to know what that is, and we need to know why they're not telling us everything about this void scourge. You think they're hiding something? Laura asked. I know they are. They said the scourge appeared 3 years ago, but Zinlak mentioned trying to communicate with it for 300 cycles, and they're too careful about what battle data they show us. A chime sounded, indicating someone at their door. Carter nodded to Grace, who quickly closed down her displays. Enter, Carter called. It was Vextora. She looked even more tired than before. Admiral Carter, she said. We've just received word. The Void Scourge has changed direction. It's moving, faster than we've ever seen it move before. Toward what? Steve asked. Vextora's 4 eyes focused on Carter. Toward Earth. Carter stared at Vextora, trying to process her words. The Void Scourge was heading toward Earth. Their home was in danger. How long do we have? He asked, keeping his voice steady. At its current speed, perhaps 60 days, Vextora replied. We have never seen it move with such purpose before. Steve Harrison stood up angrily. Is that why you brought us here? Because this thing was already coming for us? Vexitora's blue skin darkened slightly, the alien equivalent of a blush. No. This change in direction happened only hours ago. It is unexpected. Is it? Laura asked quietly. Or did you expect the scourge to follow us once you brought humans into space? The room fell silent. Carter watched Vextora closely, noting how her 4 eyes blinked in an irregular pattern. What aren't you telling us, counselor? Carter demanded. Vextora seemed to reach a decision. The Concord Council has authorized me to show you something. Only the highest levels of our leadership know this information. She led them through sections of the ship they hadn't seen before. They passed through 5 security checkpoints before reaching a small, heavily guarded room. Inside was a single pedestal with a floating, crystalline object about the size of a basketball. This is a data crystal recovered from the first world consumed by the Void Scourge, Vextora explained. It contains a message. She touched the crystal, and a holographic image appeared above it. The image showed a being unlike any of the conquered species. It stood upright on 2 legs with 2 arms, a single head, and no obvious special features. It looked almost human. The being spoke in a strange musical language. Symbols appeared, showing star systems, movement patterns, and what looked like mathematical formulas. We've spent centuries trying to fully decode this message, Vextora said, but we understand parts of it. This being is from a species called the Predecessors. They created the Void Scourge as a weapon in an ancient war. It escaped their control. A weapon? Grace asked. Against who? We don't know. The Predecessors vanished long before the Conquered formed, but their message warns that the Scourge is drawn to certain types of thought patterns and technologies. Carter stepped closer to the hologram. And you think it's drawn to humans specifically? Your species thinks differently than ours. You embrace conflict and competition in ways we evolved beyond millennia ago. The Scourge seems to be attracted to such thought patterns. Steve snorted. So you brought us here knowing we might attract this thing? It was already consuming our worlds, Vextora said defensively. We hoped your understanding of warfare might help us defeat it before it detected your presence. We were wrong. Laura studied the holographic being carefully. This predecessor, it looks almost human but not quite. Many species develop similar forms, Zinlak said, entering the room behind them. It is mere coincidence. Carter wasn't convinced. Something about this felt wrong, but he couldn't place what. If this thing is heading toward Earth, we need to act now, he said. No more half-truths or hidden agendas. Show us everything you know about the Scourge, and tell us about this final solution you've been planning. Vextora and Zinlak exchanged looks of alarm. How do you know about that? Zinlak demanded. It doesn't matter, Carter said firmly. What matters is stopping this thing before it reaches Earth. After a tense moment, Vextora nodded. The final solution is a weapon of last resort. It would create a chain reaction that would sterilize a large section of the galaxy, including the heart of the Void Scourge. And how many inhabited worlds would be caught in this sterilization? Laura asked. Vextora looked down. 12 systems, approximately 30 billion lives. The humans stared at her in horror. That's your solution? Steve exploded. Mass murder? It is extinction or survival. Zinlak clicked angrily. If the scourge cannot be stopped, the rest of the galaxy will perish anyway. Carter raised his hand for calm. We're not at that point yet. We need to try something else first. He turned to his team. We've seen how the Conquered fights. Their approaches haven't worked. It's time for a human solution. Over the next several days, Carter and his team worked tirelessly to develop what they called the Human Protocol. While the Conquered had always tried to contain and isolate the Void Scourge, setting up defensive lines and reacting to its movements, Carter proposed a completely different approach. We don't wait for it to come to us, he explained to the Concord War Council. We take the fight to it, hit it where it's vulnerable, make it react to us instead of the other way around. Steve had modified several Conquered weapon designs to be more aggressive, focusing on maximum damage rather than precision. You've been trying to surgically remove this thing, he told the alien engineers. That's like using tweezers to fight a forest fire. Sometimes you need to set a backfire to stop the main blaze. Grace discovered patterns in the Scourge's movements that suggested it wasn't just consuming randomly. It's seeking something specific, she explained, showing data charts to Vextora. Each system it attacks has certain energy signatures. If we can figure out what it's looking for, maybe we can set a trap. Laura, meanwhile, hadn't given up on communication. She worked with Concord linguists, analyzing the patterns of energy pulses the Scourge emitted during attacks. There's a rhythm to it, she insisted. It's not random static. It might be trying to communicate in ways we don't understand. The Concord leadership was skeptical of these human approaches, but with Earth now directly threatened and their own methods failing, they reluctantly agreed to try. The first test of the Human Protocol came at a small, uninhabited system directly in the Scourge's path toward Earth. Instead of forming a defensive line, Carter positioned the fleet in an attack formation, with several ships carrying modified weapons. We're going to hit it hard and fast, he told the Conquered commanders. Then we're going to fall back, regrouping to positions we've prepared in advance. You're proposing a retreat? One commander asked, sounding confused. A tactical withdrawal, Carter corrected. We hit it, see how it responds, then adjust our next attack based on what we learn. As the Void Scourge entered the system, the fleet launched its attack. Steve's modified weapons tore into the dark mass, causing larger disruptions than the Conquered had ever achieved before. As planned, the fleet then quickly jumped to their secondary positions. The Scourge seemed confused. Instead of continuing its advance, it paused, as if assessing this new threat. It's working, Carter said, watching the tactical displays. It's reacting to us now, not the other way around. But as they prepared for their second attack run, alarm signals blared throughout the ship. What's happening? Carter demanded. Vextora's voice came over the communication system, tight with stress. Admiral Carter, return to the command center immediately. We're receiving a transmission from inside the Void Scourge. Carter raced to the command center with his team close behind. When they arrived, the room was in chaos. Conquered officers moved frantically between stations, their usual orderly behavior replaced by something close to panic. What's going on? Carter demanded as he reached Vextora. She pointed to the main display. The transmission began moments after your attack. We've never seen anything like this before. The screen showed waves of energy pulsing from inside the dark mass of the Void Scourge. The patterns were complex but somehow familiar. Laura pushed forward. Let me hear it. An alien technician activated the audio. A strange sound filled the command center. Not quite language, not quite music, but something between the two. It rose and fell in patterns that seemed almost deliberate. It's responding to us, Laura said, her eyes wide. All this time you've been sending messages, but you never tried to hit it hard enough to get its attention. Can you understand what it's saying? Carter asked. Laura shook her head. Not yet, but there's definitely structure to it. This isn't Random noise. Grace was already working at a terminal, analyzing the patterns. The signals match some of the formulas from that predecessor message. I think they're related. As they worked to decipher the transmission, another alarm sounded. The Void Scourge is moving again, Zinlac announced. It has changed course. Away. From Earth? Carter asked hopefully. No. It is heading directly toward Concord Prime. The news sent a fresh wave of panic through the command center. Concord Prime was the heart of the Alien Alliance, home to over 20 billion beings. How long until it reaches Concord Prime? Carter asked. At its current speed, less than 7 days, Vexatora replied. Her voice was steady, but Carter could see the fear in her 4 eyes. We need to evacuate the planet, Carter said immediately. Zinlac clicked his mandibles in distress. Impossible. We cannot move 20 billion people in 7 days. Then we need to stop the Scourge before it gets there. Carter turned to his team. Grace, Steve, keep working on that transmission with the Concord scientists. Laura, you and I need to plan our defense. Over the next few days, they worked around the clock. Carter applied everything he had learned in 40 years of military service, designing a strategy unlike anything the Concord had tried before. We'll set up 3 lines, he explained, showing his plan on the tactical display. But not static defenses. Mobile strike forces that can hit and move, constantly changing patterns so the Scourge can't predict our actions. The Concord admirals were uncomfortable with this approach. It leaves Concord Prime exposed if your strikes fail, one objected. Nothing is without risk in war, Carter replied firmly. Your defensive strategies have failed every time. We need to try something different. Meanwhile, Grace and Steve made a breakthrough with the transmission. It's not a language as we understand it, Grace explained. It's using energy patterns to communicate math concepts and spatial relationships. What is it saying? Vexatora asked. Steve looked troubled. As far as we can tell, it's asking why we're attacking it. This news stunned the Concord leadership. You said this thing has consumed dozens of worlds, Carter said. Killed billions of people. Yes, Vexatora confirmed. We have watched it happen. Laura joined them carrying data tablets. I've been reviewing those records. The Scourge does consume systems, but watch this. She played a recording of a planet being engulfed by the dark mass. See how the buildings and structures remain intact until the very end? It's not destroying so much as absorbing. What are you suggesting? Zinlac demanded. I think the Scourge might not understand that it's killing people, Laura said. It might not even recognize our life forms as conscious beings. As they debated this possibility, a junior officer approached Vexatora and whispered something. Her blue skin paled. The Concord Council has voted, she announced, her voice tight. They are authorizing the final solution. What? Carter was shocked. But we're making progress. We've established communication. We have a defense plan. They fear it is too late, Vexatora said. The weapon is being prepared now. It will be ready in 3 days. But Concord Prime will still be intact then, Laura protested. Your own people will die. The Council is evacuating key leadership and cultural repositories, Zinlac explained. They deem the sacrifice acceptable to stop the Scourge permanently. Carter couldn't believe what he was hearing. You're abandoning your own people? Billions of them? It is for the greater survival of all species, Vexatora said, though she didn't sound convinced herself. Carter looked at his team. They didn't need words to communicate. All of them knew they couldn't let this happen. We need to see the final solution weapon, Carter told Vexatora. If it's going to be used, my team should understand how it works so we can coordinate our defense efforts. It was a lie, but Vexatora was too distracted to notice. She authorized their access to the heavily guarded facility deep within the ship, where the weapon was being prepared. What they found was horrifying. The weapon was designed to create a chain reaction in the fabric of space itself, effectively erasing a large section of the galaxy from existence. This will kill trillions, not billions, Steve whispered as they examined the plans. The effects will spread far beyond the initial blast zone. As they were studying the weapon, Grace noticed something strange in the design. These energy signatures, they're exactly what the Void Scourge is attracted to. Using this weapon won't just kill billions, it might actually make the Scourge stronger. Carter had seen enough. We're stopping this. Now. Using Steve's technical knowledge, they disabled key components of the weapon, making it look operational while ensuring it would fail if activated. Then they put the next phase of their plan into action. That night, while most of the Concord leadership was in emergency sessions, Carter and his team made their way to a small hangar bay. "Are you sure about this?" Laura asked as they prepared to board a scout ship. Carter nodded grimly. "We can't let them sacrifice billions of innocent lives, and we need to know the truth about this Void Scourge." "The ship is ready," Grace announced, emerging from the scout vessel. "I've disabled the tracking systems. They won't know where we've gone." "Where exactly are we going?" Steve asked, loading equipment into the ship. Carter's expression was determined. "We're going to do something the Concorde would never consider. We're going to fly right into the heart of the Void Scourge." As they boarded the ship, an alarm suddenly blared throughout the hangar. Zinlak's voice came over the communication system. "Admiral Carter, stop. The Council knows what you've done to the weapon. Security forces are on their way." Carter sealed the ship's door. "Grace, get us out of here now." The small ship shot out of the hangar just as security forces burst in. Within moments, they were in open space, racing away from the Concorde flagship. "They'll come after us," Laura warned. "Not immediately," Carter said. "They'll be too busy, trying to fix the weapon. That gives us time to do what we need to do." The ship accelerated toward the massive dark cloud that was the Void Scourge, now visible in the distance. "Everyone ready?" Carter asked, looking at each member of his team. They nodded, faces tense but determined. "Then let's go meet our enemy face to face." The small scout ship approached the edge of the Void Scourge. Up close, the dark mass wasn't completely black. It shimmered with tiny points of light, like stars seen through a dark fog. "All systems are still working," Grace reported, checking. "The instruments. Whatever this thing is made of, it's not affecting our technology yet." Carter nodded. "Good. Laura, keep broadcasting that message you developed." Laura had created a response to the Scourge's transmission, using similar mathematical patterns but simplified, basic concepts of peace and communication, repeating on all frequencies. "I'm receiving something," Grace suddenly said. A response, stronger than before. The ship shuddered as it passed through the outer boundary of the Scourge. For a moment, the viewports showed only darkness. Then suddenly they were in a vast open space inside the Scourge itself. What they saw left them speechless. Inside the dark cloud were thousands of intact structures. Not just buildings, but entire sections of planets, cities, and spacecraft, all floating in a strange ordered pattern. It was like a museum of everything the Scourge had consumed. "It's preserving them," Laura whispered. "Not destroying them." Before they could process this sight, a new light appeared ahead of them. Something was approaching their ship. "Should I try to run?" Grace asked, her hands hovering over the controls. Carter shook his head. "No, we came to communicate. Let's see this through." The light grew brighter until it resolved into a shape, humanoid, glowing with soft blue energy. It stopped just outside their viewport, seeming to study them. Then, to their shock, a voice spoke directly into their minds. "You're different. You sought us out. Why?" The four humans exchanged stunned looks. "It's telepathic," Laura said quietly. "Try thinking your response." Carter focused his thoughts. "We want to understand why you are consuming worlds and killing people." The glowing figure tilted its head. "Killing? No. Preserving. Saving." Images flashed in their minds, a massive wave of energy approaching from beyond the galaxy, obliterating everything in its path, the predecessors facing extinction, creating the Scourge as a way to preserve their civilization. "The Harbinger comes," the being continued. "We gather and protect all we can before it arrives." "What Harbinger?" Steve asked mentally. More images filled their minds, something vast and incomprehensible approaching the galaxy, something that consumed energy itself, leaving absolute nothingness behind. The predecessors knew, the being explained. They created us to save what could be saved. We absorb and preserve. Those within us continue in a different form. You're saying the people you've taken are still alive? Laura asked. Not as you. Understand life. But their essence, their knowledge, their consciousness preserved. Carter struggled to understand. And this harbinger, when will it arrive? Soon. Very soon. That is why we accelerated our preservation efforts. Grace gasped. The final solution weapon, the energy it would release, would draw the harbinger directly to this galaxy, the being confirmed. Your attack caught our attention because it was similar to predecessor weapons. We feared you might unintentionally summon the harbinger before we could complete our work. The situation suddenly became clear to Carter. The Void Scourge wasn't an enemy. It was trying to save what it could before something much worse arrived. And the Conquered's final solution would actually doom the entire galaxy. We need to stop the Conquered from using that weapon, Carter said urgently. And we need to warn them about this harbinger. They will not believe you, the being stated. They have feared us for too long. Then show them, Laura suggested. Show them what you've shown us. The being seemed to consider this. It would require significant energy, and we have little time. We'll help you, Carter decided. Together we can convince them. The being agreed. It explained what they needed to do. The scout ship would carry a portion of the Scourge's consciousness back to Conquered Prime. With direct contact, the truth could be shared. As they prepared to leave, Steve asked the question they were all thinking. Can the harbinger be stopped? The being's light dimmed slightly. The predecessors believed not. That is why they created us, to preserve, not to fight. Humans think differently, Carter said firmly. We don't accept no-win scenarios. The journey back to Conquered Prime was tense. Multiple Conquered ships tried to intercept them, but with the Scourge entity's help they evaded capture. As they approached the planet, they saw the massive evacuation underway, ships leaving by the thousands as the elite escaped. They're still planning to use the weapon, Grace said, detecting energy buildups in the Conquered fleet. Get us to the main council chamber, Carter ordered. We need to stop this now. With the Scourge entity guiding them, they bypassed the planet's defenses and landed directly at the government complex. As they expected, most of the council had already fled, but Vextora remained, overseeing the final preparations. She turned in shock as they burst into the command center. Admiral Carter, how did you... Her words cut off as she saw the glowing being that floated beside them. What is that? She whispered, backing away. The truth, Carter said simply. Something you should have sought long ago. The glowing entity expanded, filling the room with light. Everyone present, the remaining council members, staff, and security forces, suddenly froze as their minds were linked with the entities. Carter watched as understanding dawned on their faces. The truth of the Scourge, the approaching harbinger, the futility of their final solution, all became clear in seconds. When the light faded, Vextora looked at Carter with new eyes. We have been so wrong, she said quietly. All these centuries, fighting against our only hope of preservation. Not preservation, Carter corrected. Defense. Humans don't just accept fate. We fight to change it. In the days that followed, an unprecedented alliance formed. The Void Scourge halted its consumption of worlds, instead working with the Concord to prepare defenses against the Harbinger. The entity shared the predecessor's knowledge, while humans contributed their unique perspective on warfare and survival. Steve and Grace developed a new kind of weapon, combining predecessor science with human ingenuity. Rather than trying to destroy the Harbinger, it would create a barrier, a wall of energy at the galaxy's edge that would divert the approaching threat. The price was high. Powering such a barrier would require energy on an unimaginable scale. The outer rim of the galaxy would burn, becoming a permanent wall of flame. 1 month later, Carter stood on an observation deck with Vextora, watching as the barrier activated. The edge of the galaxy slowly lit up. A beautiful and terrible sight, as stars fed their energy into the defensive wall. Your species was truly our final option, Vexatora said softly. Not because you understand war, but because you understand hope. Carter nodded, watching the galaxy go up in flames, not in destruction, but in defense. Sometimes the best way to preserve life is to be willing to fight for it, he said. Behind them, representatives of dozens of species worked together, planning for a future that now seemed possible. Humans moved among aliens, teaching and learning, bringing their unique perspective to a much larger community. The galaxy burned at its edges, a shield of flame against the darkness beyond. And in that light, a new understanding was born. One that would change the course of all their civilizations forever.